Last player I want to touch on for the Buccaneers is Rachaad White. And while everything's been optimistic for my discussions with Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, I unfortunately can't say the same about Rachaad White. This is a guy who, coming into the season, I thought was going to be really, really solid for them. He was a great pass catcher last year, and his biggest issue has just been running the ball. And as a running back, that's not really acceptable, and you're not really going to last long term if you can't run the ball. And that kind of goes without saying. But for Rachaad, he's been in the league a couple of years now, and he's been a very, very good receiving back. But you can't even make the argument that he's been dual threat because his Buccaneers offense has had the worst rushing offense in the league for the past couple of years, according to both yards per attempt and actual yardage. So for Rachaad, he's getting some attempts, but he's not doing much with it. And this past game, he only had 10 carries, and he had 72 yards, which looks pretty solid on paper. But one of those carries was like for 50 yards. So if you take out that play, he really didn't contribute to much in the rushing game. And it's really sad to see from Rachaad because, once again, this is a guy I was pretty high on. But I don't know what the long-term future for him is in Tampa, especially because Bucky Irving has shown some flashes. And this O-line, yeah, it hasn't been the best at run blocking, but Bucky Irving has done more with that O-line than Rachaad White has in 3 years. And this is Bucky's rookie year. So for Rachaad, I don't know that he has a long-term future in Tampa. And it's really a shame to see because this is a guy that has a lot of potential if he can put it all together as a dual threat. But right now he's one-dimensional. And when you put him out there, it's kind of a sign that the Buccaneers are more than likely going to pass that ball because that's where Rachaad's best at. And so I think you can run two running backs with him and Bucky, kind of make some trick plays, have Bucky in the backfield and have Rachaad a receiver. I think that can work well sometimes. And then maybe, run a trick play like they did this past game where you've got Rachaad lined up at the running back and Bucky is wide receiver. And then you swap it out in the motion before the ball is snapped. So it works out sometimes, but in general, there's not much of a spot for Rachaad White on this team. And it's just really a shame to see. He's got a ton of talent, a ton of heart, I believe, but he hasn't been able to put it all together. If you enjoyed this video, it would be great if you could find it in you to like, subscribe, maybe check out the full podcast on Spotify, follow us on there, follow us on Instagram. I know realistically this podcast isn't going to go anywhere ultimately, whether it's via the segments on YouTube or the entire podcast itself. But I want to get into the sports broadcasting business. I want to be able to promote thought-provoking discussions about the NBA, and I would love to do it via State of the Association. Thank you if you made it all the way through.